Hi, I'm Sheila Layton. Welcome to the Beyond Coincidence Show, where every moment holds a miracle and we talk about seeing the hand of God in our lives. Call it a God wink or a tender mercy or whatever you want. Everyone on this show has seen the hand of God or their higher power in their lives in a very real and personal way.
Hey everybody, welcome to our podcast today. We have a fun guest. Her name's Elise, and we actually figured out that we are related. About 10 years ago, I was at her house because she's a fitness guru and I was trying to keep up and not doing a good job at it. But she was talking about her family and said her grandma's name was Ione. And I was like, Ione? That's an interesting name. I have a relative named Ione. Anyway, we figured out that we're like second cousins or something like that. So it's been super fun to get to know her, and she's a pretty fun lady. So I will let her tell you a little bit about what is Elise's life like today.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
So that's a big thing looming on my horizon, but not a scary thing to me. I've married, have been married for about 26 years now, and I have 4 kids, 3 adults and 1 kid left at home. Well, they're all at home, but yeah, it's a busy place. And then I run a wellness company that I have been doing in one form or another for a little over 15 years now. So, and I did start with fitness and have always had a huge passion for taking care of your body and doing those kinds of things. And I have moved in the last 5 to 6 years into more like wellness and productivity in a corporate environment, and consulting for a major oil company. And
so what does that look like?
Oh, it's great. It's kind of cool.
Is it full time? Like you're there every day?
I'm there every day. It's I'm a contractor, so sometimes I'm full time, sometimes I'm not. I am actually I'm in the process. Yeah, it's the best of all worlds. I'm actually in the process of doing mindfulness integration into workplace processes. So a couple of years ago, actually right at the beginning of COVID, I took a year-long teacher training on meditation and mindfulness, and I've incorporated that into the workplace. So yeah, lots of cool stuff. Yeah, lots of really cool stuff, and lots of growth and learning there that has been really, really beneficial, and really loved it. So yeah, I would say that I'm just one of those people that I'm very keenly interested always in learning and in understanding a little more deeply, and just taking care of myself and other people. That's my passion.
So are you still teaching fitness classes like through the company you're working with?
Yeah, yep. I actually still have a couple of rogue personal training clients that I still take at my house that they're like grandfathered in. But yeah, I actually run the fitness center for this oil company, and I do teach a couple classes a week, so I haven't let the reins go on that. But like, as you get older, the body's a little bit like, hey, how about we don't do 15 of these a week? So yeah, it's dialing back, but always something that I just love. There's just nothing more fantastic than standing in a room with other people doing things.
The energy, right?
Yes,
just
yeah.
The energy.
Yeah, you're very aware of it. It's just one of my favorite things.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's go back to little Elise. Let's go back to growing up. Your home life, did a religion play a part? Didn't it? Like, take me back to where your life growing up. Where did you grow up, and how did that look, and family and things like that?
Yeah, so I actually, till I was 5, I lived in Brooks, Alberta, and then we moved to Calgary, and I was one of 4 kids. I was the 3rd kid and one of the middle children, which I was the best kids. Yeah, we went to church regularly. We had, there's a fair span in age. Like my oldest sister is the oldest kid. She's 8 years older than me, and I don't know. Like, it's actually, I was reflecting on this question a little bit when you and I were talking about doing this, and I was trying to think back on what that was like. And I remember my mom being really busy with church. My dad worked a lot. He was out of town a lot, so I don't remember that quite so much. I do remember him sitting on Sundays or Saturday nights, like preparing a lesson, or he was, going to do something for church.
So you grew up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yeah, we were LDS. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, and it was kind of I don't know. I feel like there were high and low points for that, for my mom especially. Like, she spent time really involved in church, and then there were years where she had nothing to do with it. And I actually, at about 14, was like, I'm not interested in church anymore. I kind of had I had some crazy years, and I got tired of hearing that we don't do that because the church says that.
Well, yeah.
I got really frustrated with that a lot, and I didn't have a lot
why
of.
Can't we just do it for ourselves?
Yes, and I remember pointedly saying, like, you chose this, I didn't choose this, I don't want to do this. And none of my friends' families were religious. Like, I had tons of friends at school that were like, what do you mean you have to go to church on Sunday? So,
okay,
yeah,
so they didn't have any real faith traditions of their own.
No. So it made me, I actually kind of felt like a weirdo in my social group, because there also in the area that we went to church in, there were actually no girls that were my age. I went to church and I was in a group of kids that were like, there was like 6 or 7 boys that were my age and me, and those boys were miserable. So it was, it wasn't like a super fabulous experience in comparison to what I saw other people doing. But yeah, so I did eventually kind of just say, I'm good. I don't need to do this. And I stopped going, kind of like my mom did. So,
and then
took
your
a break.
mom sort of came back, and you didn't for a while.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I spent about 10 years just doing me, living my life. And it was. I look back on it now, and I think like I do go to church now, and I'm pretty involved in it. But I look back on that period and I think, well, I certainly learned a lot of things. I have a lot of experiences that taught me a lot of things about maybe that wasn't the best route, but also, okay, well, I learned, and now I've utilized it with my kids.
Oh, for sure.
Now as a parent.
Everybody has a path.
Yes.
I feel like there's this big mountain, and there's billions of people hiking up this mountain. The goal is the top for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. But there's as many paths back to heaven, or whatever your belief system is, as there are people on the planet.
Yeah.
And so I feel like your path is your path, your journey is your journey for a reason.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right? You learn a lot about yourself, what you like, what you don't like. And obviously you found your way back to God. Like, it was important to you at some point, right?
Well, I think I'm just one of those people that I really have to learn it for myself. Like I wish I could be one of those people that learn from other people's mistakes, or, and now that I'm older, I can kind of see like, oh, and somebody shares something with you, you're kind of like, oh, maybe I would avoid that. But definitely in my first 10 or 15 years of my life, or maybe the first 20 years of my life, there was a desire to just really know it for myself. But
that's key, I think.
It is key. Yeah. And I think that in anything that you're really going to commit to over the long term in your life, like there has to be some sort of point for you where you're like, that's the moment where I'm like, this is it. This is what I want. And when I encounter problems around that later, I'll go back and I'll remember that. Like I'll remember, I know I learned this. This is what I wanted, and I'll stick to that path. So, but I wouldn't have done that had I not had some of the challenges that I had.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, though, if it's not your idea, like eventually, I mean, you can live off your parents' beliefs for so long, but eventually you have to come to your own.
Yep.
And if you don't and you're faking it, eventually you're not going to stick with it because it's not in your heart. It's not in your soul, right? Like, so I think you did good. Like, I mean, but some people don't need that.
Yes. Oh, and that's
some don't.
Agreed. Absolutely. Like, honestly, I know tons of them that I'm like, wow, good for you. My husband was like that. But that's just not me.
Yeah,
not my
I mean,
personality.
I was kind of like that, but my dad suffered with alcohol addiction, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't going down that path.
Yes.
I saw that path. I was like, nope. And it wasn't that I was just so good. It just was not. I was smart. Maybe it was fear.
Well, but you also lived with it, right? I didn't have any of those kinds of moments. I was actually very much in a bubble in my home. So I was always pushing back, like, well, why don't we do that? Or why can't I do that? Like, I should be able to make that choice.
Right.
So, and that was it. I eventually just was like, that. No, this is my choice. I'm doing this. So that's,
And your mom was like, what?
Yeah. They weren't super excited about that.
Well, I mean, and you look at, I remember being a young mom and looking at people's kids who are struggling and thinking, well, just make it happen.
Yeah.
And
or
then,
you tell that kid.
Yeah, you tell that kid, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like,
no.
I don't ever say those things anymore, because as soon as I judge somebody, it comes back at me tenfold.
Yes.
The Lord is like, oh, yeah, you're going to learn this lesson.
Yeah, definitely. We've had that in our own home. I mean, two of our kids have definitely, they don't want to attend church. They don't want to live that lifestyle. And because I had the experiences when I did, I was much more able to grasp that. And ironically, my oldest child actually said to me at about 16 or 17 years old, I didn't choose this, you did. And I was like, weird. I've heard that before. But at the same time, I really, like, I felt his need deeply because I had that experience, because I had felt that very same thing. And I remember my husband being so upset because he's like, what do you mean you told him he didn't have to come to church? And I said to him, he has to want this for himself. And
because he didn't understand that,
yeah,
right?
And we have to, like, there's a point where you, like, in any good things, you know, look at what I do, like diet, nutrition, exercise. Like, there's only so much you can tell people, and then they really have to want it for themselves.
So true.
And they have to feel a need, and then they have to put something into action that they feel like, yeah, oh my gosh, I feel that, or that's yielding what I'm looking for. And it resonates with me all of a sudden. And that's it. Like our two older kids, it's just been very much like, if this is the root for you, even if it means you never come back to this faith that we practice, if you need to understand this for yourself, if you need to learn who you are, you are still a fantastic, amazing person. You're right. Like my boys they're lovely, they're kind,
they're good humans,
they're
right?
good humans, and that's it. In the end, I'm like, that is not the goal. Is that we taught you the best we could, and then we let you make those choices, and that's so. Yeah, I feel like my youth taught me that much more than my husband, who was like, no, we can't do this, and it's like,
but
no,
you're a good balance for that, right?
Yes, yeah,
that's a good balance, because you can say, hey, listen, I'm okay.
Yeah, and just trust for a little bit, step back and let somebody have their experience.
Yeah, they need to have those experiences on their own, right?
Yep.
So I think your experience has helped you be a better mom with the kids that are yours. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think you've been thinking about an experience of where you saw the hand of God or felt the hand of God in your life. Mm-hmm. Let's get into that. Give me as much detail as you want, like so that we can kind of see the process or whatever.
Yeah.
And be as vulnerable or not, like whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Let's
get
into it.
This is actually, I feel like what's interesting, I'll share the experience, but I'll tell you that just recently in my world, I've really come back and drawn on this experience. So I'm grateful for it a second time around. We do get to recycle some things. When I was about 22 years old, I had been in a relationship with someone, actually I think I was 23. We'd been together about 4 years. I thought for sure we were going to get married. Like, our life was, that was the way it was going. And
no, he was not of our faith.
He was not. No, he was not religious in any sense. Actually, he'd been raised Catholic, but hadn't darkened the door of a church in a long time. Right. And that didn't. I was like, great, this is the life I want, and I loved him very much. And he had cancer for 3 of the 4 years that we had been together, and then he was diagnosed as terminal. Oh. And so there were quite a few moments in that, from that terminal diagnosis that were, I found myself stepping back a little bit and saying, okay, why is this happening? Like, my whole life was just planned out, and all of a sudden everything I have, it was just, you're just kind of like stunned.
And how long was he, like, from the terminal diagnosis to his passing?
Till he died, it was a year.
Oh, it was a whole year you had to live with that. Oh.
So, well, that's kind of a long story. That's another piece of it. But yeah, so there was definitely a lot of soul searching that went on with that. And a little bit for me, and then a lot for me, going back to God, basically, and just being like, okay, now what? Like, what the heck? Why is this happening? And this is so unfair. I was more sad and scared because, I was 23 years old. Like, I was a little bit like, what? This is quite a thing to navigate. And we'd been dealing with cancer, and he'd had his leg amputated. Like, we'd been through a lot already. He was about 7 years older than me.
Which is a lot to go through when you're young like that. Like, really.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely when we got through that stage where there was like, there's nothing we can do. This is terminal. This is the timeline we're looking at. I definitely got into some soul searching, and that puts a lot of strain on a relationship too, when you get those types of diagnoses, especially when you're not married and you don't have kids, you don't have things that are kind of like keeping you glued together. And there were just a whole chain of events that came about where I finally was kind of like, I don't know if this relationship can stay it the way it is. Like, I can be here and I can support him, but I feel like, I thought we would get married immediately. Like, I was like, okay, we have a year left. He's going to want, like, we'll get married. I've been waiting 4 years for us to have this, or, and I remember him saying to me, oh, my most important thing to me is that I'm going to be with my friends for as long as I can. I'm going to live with my roommates and my friends. My friends are the most important thing. And I remember just kind of like having these little like stabs, one little thing after the next. And I finally decided I was going to maybe start going to church on Sundays, because there was so much turmoil in my world at that point.
Hey?
Yes,
Peace.
I needed some peace.
You didn't know where to go for it at
first,
right?
And he had no interest in going with me or looking at that. And I was like, that's completely fine. This is just about me. And so I went to church for a few weeks in a row, and then I would immediately go back and spend time with him. And by this point, we're dealing with the amputated leg. Like, there was just a lot going on. I did a lot of stuff in his world. But he got really hostile about me attending church on Sundays. And I kind of said to him at one point, I know you don't understand, but I really need this for me. Like, and in my head,
it's been almost 10 years at this point, right?
No, 4. We'd been together.
But then you'd
yes. Yeah, it had been a good 10 years. Yeah. So, and that alone, like going back to church after 10 years, that's kind of a strange world for you too.
Sure.
And I didn't have like friends that I went with. So I was literally going and sitting at church by myself, just seeking something, like some sort of solace. And then to have this person that you love and like, had all these plans with, and that you've supported and like sat in hospital rooms and doctor's appointments, to say that they were hostile about this one thing. I felt kind of betrayed, and I felt upset. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to him, I know you don't understand. I know you don't want to do this, and that's okay, but can you try? Like, can you make an effort to understand this? And he was like, no, I can't.
Oh dear.
And I remember feeling so lost. At the meantime, like, my parents had gotten divorced and my dad was getting remarried. Like, there was a lot going on in my world. And I remember finally just like going home one day and getting down on my knees in my bedroom and just saying, okay, Lord, like, everything I'm doing right now is a mess. Like,
the whole life's screwed up.
Everything is a mess. And I like, if church isn't the right place, like if there isn't really something here, I have to pull back from this thing, because this is just this. I felt like it was the thing I could like get rid of. Like, I was like, okay, I could scrap this, and when this person passes away, maybe I can take another stab at it. Like, maybe that seems like a childish way to look at it, but I just really was kind of like, I need to start figuring out some things that are going to take some of the stresses away. And I like, with pure intent and pure desire to know, like, to hear some sort of answer, I was like, I need to know if this is the right thing, if this is where I should be, if this is what I'm supposed to do, if this is going to church and changing the direction of my life, is this the right thing? And then, kind of as a caveat in that moment, I actually was like, and I feel so alone right now. Like, I feel completely lost. And I'm literally saying this to the Lord. I wish somebody could come in and like hold me. Like, I feel like I need somebody to carry me for a minute. Yeah. And it was just kind of interesting, because I feel like I don't know that in all the years I attended church as a child that I ever sincerely prayed for things. Like, I mean, as a kid, you pray for things, right? Like, please let us find the baseball or whatever it is, right? But this was a genuine, like, SOS.
I need help.
Help me. Yeah. And that like almost kind of strange request to be like, I actually like need to feel the physical comfort of this answer. And I had this super crazy moment where everything was still in the world, like nothing. I'm sure all the clocks in the world stopped ticking for a moment. And I had this feeling of this insanely warm embrace that just like arms came around me, and it was so clear, like, yes, this is what you need to do.
And was that just Was that a thought in
It
your
was
mind?
a thought. Yeah, it was very thought. It was almost
the
like
feeling was very physical.
the
right?
feel. I literally was a physical feeling, but it was almost like reading it on a computer screen. Like I could see the words in my mind. Yes, this is where you need to be. And then, interestingly enough, the second thought or the second prompt that came for me was, "You can't go back from knowing this," which I thought at the time was really kind of strange because I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, why would I need to go back from knowing this? But it was so clearly part of, I know that you've got more struggles coming and you're going to have to hang on to this knowledge,
And
like,
this feeling of power
yeah,
and love.
and really, really like take this in because you got your answer. Like you asked with intention and with a pure heart to know, and you did it. And it just was kind of one of those things where I was like, okay, I felt like I'd been holding my breath for months, and I finally was able to kind of go, okay, all right.
Did you just break down and sob at that moment? Like,
Actually, I don't. I remember just kind of really like slowly kind of coming back into my world, like I kind of got up and I sat on my bed and I thought about it for a little while and thought like,
did you go through it in your mind? Like, what just happened?
well, it was more so just like there was no mistaking that. It was so clear, and that feeling, that literal physical feeling of being embraced was just so clear. Like it wasn't like, oh, I think maybe I sort of felt warm and fuzzy. Like it was like, no,
Full on.
genuinely, there was an absolute sensation of somebody being there for me. And
I could not deny
no,
what you felt.
no. And like I said, to have that secondary kind of prompting, like you can't go back from knowing this, was incredibly powerful for me. And I had some tough decisions after that. And Mike and I actually split up before he died. Like it just got to the point which felt like the most un-Christ-like thing I could possibly dream of doing.
I'm sure.
And ensued a lot of struggle. And my mom was so angry with me. She actually asked me to move out. Like, she's like, I just can't believe I've raised a kid that would do this, and.
But were you going to church though through
Yes,
the next month?
yeah. Like that was
But
it. And I was like, I am trying to do everything right here in this scenario. There was lots of things, like I said, lots and lots of layers to an experience like that. But yeah, it was just one of those things where you in the moment are like, holy crap, am I actually going to do this? But
you needed to.
I did need to. And I sought counsel. Like I had a great uncle that was like, you can't save someone else if you're drowning. And if you feel so lost and so overwhelmed, and this person who you've cared for and you've taken care of all this time can't see that you need that as well. Like, does this person really love you? Like there was a lot of things. There were a lot of things. For a 22, 23-year-old girl, that was, there were a lot of tough lessons in that experience, but definitely one that cemented my choices. Like, and like I said, very awkward things. Like all the people that we associated and were friends with, I was the leper. Like there were a lot of things. Like I said, my dad got remarried, and I married somebody that I didn't know at all at the time. And my mom was so upset with me, and I kind of felt like, woo, I'm adrift. Like I got
nobody.
I'm an island here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciated that really clear answer and that understanding that rolled in.
That's so cool, because God knew. Right? Mm-hmm. He knew, okay, she needs something really clear because she's got hard stuff coming. Mm-hmm. So this, and like you say, that secondary thought of, now you can't go back.
Yeah, you have to remember, like, you got this answer, and I like sent someone to give you a hug, like that was
something not just in your mind, but something very
physical.
It
was very physical. And I'll say too, I've never had an experience like that ever again. But
yeah, these are not the experiences that you have every week.
No. And I mean, honestly, I know people that have had fabulous, spectacular things that didn't stick with them either. So, but yeah, I did think that was ironic that he knew me well enough to say, I'm gonna have to make this clear for you.
But that's what I love about it, right? Is that,
yeah.
that our Father in heaven does know us. He knows what we need. He knows in that journey of, hard things that we face, he knows what we need.
Yes.
And he knows what we will need.
Yes. Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like that's what I think is so fascinating about hearing these kind of stories, is that the Lord knew, and he knew that you would need this experience 25 years later.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
you said you had to draw on it recently.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's been lots of moments. Like my mom died 2 years ago from dementia, and that, like, there's a lot of things that happen to you, and you know it too. I mean, your trauma was so different, and it's such a different stage in your life, but there's still just times where you draw on things, or you're just like, oh my gosh, how long am I going to have to run at this pace? You know,
Yeah.
like, or what could I drop from my life that really doesn't feel important or necessary right at this moment, or is not filling anything in me that I really genuinely need. And I feel like faith can be one of those things that you can, if you're not really connected to it, or you've softened those muscles for a while, that you can be kind of like, well, I don't know. Yeah, like,
but like I say,
maybe
when
I
your
just
mom
don't
was
need to be
dying,
there. Yeah, yeah.
you probably went back on that experience, did you?
Well, more so that I just kind of went back and went on this concept, because I was like, I took care of her, and I took care of the legal, you know, like I was her guardian. Mm-hmm. And there are decisions that you make for someone else in their life that you feel like, oh my gosh, how can I make this decision? Do I want to be this person? So that was, or that is, I'm going to put you into care, and you don't want to go there. And
that's terrible.
It's terrible. But those were things where I would go back and be like, okay, there needs to be some serious like reinforcements here that I need to ask, and I need to pray and say, is this the right choice? Is this the right place? There were a lot of things dealing, especially with my mom's life and her illness at the end, that was, I relied a lot. Guided? Yeah, that I relied on a lot, that where I would go back and say, tell me, you know, I feel like this is where I'm going to put her. I see these challenges, but this is why. So something I've learned as an older adult is you really do have the opportunity to have a conversation with the Lord. You don't have to it doesn't always have to be formal. It doesn't always have to be this really specific ordered prayer. Like
You're having a conversation.
I am literally like, hey, you know me better than anyone else has ever known me. You know what's in my heart. You know what's in my head. You know what I'm trying to accomplish, and I need your help.
So how would those answers come to you? Like, especially like for your moms, because you really needed answers.
Yeah, I would say now, honestly, the most common thread for me at this point is feeling peaceful. I know you and I were kind of talking about this before we started, about like how some people get really emotional and teary. I don't. I actually feel just really peaceful. Like I stop worrying about the decision. And conversely, like if I go and I involve the Lord in a decision and I don't feel right about it, I still feel worry. I still feel
so that stupor of thought.
Like oh, you know. Well, I've had stupor thought too, where I'm just like, maybe that's a not right now, because I don't feel stressed and I don't feel peaceful, but I just kind of feel like nothing, dead space. But I've definitely had decisions where I'm like, what about this? And then I feel like especially if you deal with anxiety, you know, you kind of have that gnawing feeling somewhere running in the background. Mm-hmm. If I have that about a decision when I've gotten down on my knees and I've prayed about it, then I'm like, that's not the right answer. Okay. Understanding what peace feels like, I think for me is the greatest indicator of like, yes, that's the root.
So what does peace feel like? Would you say, like for you?
No gnawing worries in the background. No questioning again.
You're not remunerating and thinking about it many times.
Yeah, like I'm not just living it over and over like, is that maybe what I should do? It's more so just like, yeah, this is the path. And carry on. Go forward with it, you know. It's clear. Yeah. And even sometimes it feels challenging. And that's the other thing I've learned, is that sometimes the clear answer and the peaceful answer does not mean that it's the easy one, or it doesn't mean that everything falls into place perfectly, or it feels perfectly comfortable. But there's a difference between feeling peaceful about a decision and being uncomfortable about the process, and feeling that just gnawing, anxious feeling of like, I don't know, like, what should I do? Is this what I should do? Like there's definitely that sensation for me between the two places.
Well, that's a really good way to explain that, is that it can be the right decision and still feel uncomfortable, but it's not worrisome.
Yes. Right? Yeah. And I mean, I would say with doing meditation teacher training, and this is kind of interesting. When I did my teacher training, we had one-on-ones with the guy that did the program with us. And he said to me, I understand from lots of comments that you make that you are religious, that you have a faith. And he's like, we had to practice every day for a certain amount of time as part of this program for the whole year.
I need to do that.
Oh my gosh. It's like, Well, I feel like it's the perfect companion to prayer. And that was actually what he said to me. He said, I think before you start your meditation, you should pray. And then you're ready to hear. And if he is nowhere, he does not practice the same faith. Well, he is actually religious, but completely different direction and faith. But he was like, I feel like you're going to really understand the depth of listening with that.
That's awesome.
And so I feel like that really refined that practice for me, and that understanding what peacefulness feels like. Like
They go hand in hand.
Yeah,
right?
It's just a very quiet place for me. And I've actually gotten to the point too where when I'm at a crossroads of things, I'll kind of visualize when I'll pray, and then I'll practice meditation, and I'll think to myself, like, I visualize having stones in my hands. Like if you are familiar with the Book of Mormon and they lit the stones to put in the boats. And if you don't know what that is, ask somebody who's LDS to tell them the story. But I'm like, here, I have the stones in my mind's eye here. I'm going to put them out, and you're going to light them. And the path will, like, I'll find the path. I'll find the direction that I need to go. Like the way will be shown, right? And that's, to me, that's just that trust too, that comes from if you involve the Lord in your decisions, and you don't go to him to just with like willy-nilly, what should I do? But like, this is what I think I should do, with as much detail as I can. Then you have a little bit of a chance to kind of wait and to hear and to feel those promptings. And sometimes the promptings are just like, peaceful, go ahead. And sometimes it's like, there's nothing. Or sometimes there's that gnawing, like, maybe go back to the drawing board on that. But I feel like even if you practice that enough, that gnawing, go back to the drawing board a bit, doesn't even have to be really distressing. Like, he's there in all things is what I appreciate. And that's what I've really come to understand.
Yeah,
is
the
that,
good, the bad, the right, the wrong.
He's there in all things. And he's like, look, maybe go back and rethink this, because you're on the right track, but you're not quite there, or that maybe there's an easier way, or maybe there's someone that really needs to be involved that you haven't thought of yet, or there's a resource somewhere that you haven't discovered yet that you will. I'll find a way to show you. Just go back and ask again, or think about it again. So I definitely, those things refine over the period of our life, and the more we practice them.
Right.
And I think too, the more you are willing to just have that open relationship with God around, let him be part of your life,
invite him into your story.
Yes.
In however way that looks for you. Like you say, you don't have to kneel down beside your bed and say a proper prayer. I mean, I
do a lot of it on my meditation cushion, and I'm not kneeling and praying. Like, it's not traditional at all.
Do a lot of just walking around the house, in the shower, like literally. I mean, I'm not. I used to be really good about kneeling beside my bed every night, and I don't. First of all, it hurts my knees now, but so I'm thinking God's going to give me a bye for that one, but I will lots of times just pray throughout the day. Yeah. And have had some, and I sort of started a practice years ago where I drive in the car and I don't listen to the radio if I've got something on my mind. Oh. And thoughts will just come to my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're making space for it, right?
Yeah. Because I just feel like a lot of, especially like younger people now, they're on their phones all the time. Yes. Their phone is right there. And you can't hear anything if you're not quiet. Yeah. Right? It's impossible.
Yep, absolutely.
So like you say, make a little bit of space.
Yeah. And be okay with stillness, right? I think that we struggle with stillness. Yeah.
Really
hard. I have a real love for stillness now. The other thing that I've done in the last couple of years, probably 5 or 6 years, I actually have started a prayer journal. And again, I feel like we learned as kids in the LDS faith, like, this is the order of prayer. This is how we do it. Get down on your knees, fold your arms. Yeah, like close your eyes. I actually got to the point where I started a journal, and I would break the journal up into 3 sections. I'd have a page for whatever I was going to pray about, and it would be like things I'm grateful for, people I'm praying for, and why. Like sometimes I would make a note what I was concerned for them or what I knew their needs were, and then things I was working on for myself. And I would actually sit down and I would like pray, and I would like open my eyes and check the list, like, did I get everything? But I felt like to me it just ordered my thoughts more effectively. Like it gave me some time. It gave me some time to kind of like prepare for that discussion and think through what I want to discuss with the Lord and not forget things. And
so you'd write in it before you
I would write in it before I prayed. Okay. And then I would like open my eye and look at it and be like, okay, yeah, that. And it was also a place that if something came to mind after you were done, you can make a note there, right?
So you don't
it's
forget.
so you don't forget, because let's face it, like middle-aged lady,
You're forgetting everything.
stuff is slipping out at every turn, right? But that was something that really I found has really focused the practice of, again, having those conversations with the Lord and deepening the purpose of, I'm not just getting to a point where I'm going to say my prayers and be like, thanks for, my home and all the good things, and please bless my mom. And, like,
right. You're having a conversation.
Yeah. Like, you can get a little bit stagnant.
Oh, for sure.
So.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Okay. So the final question, why do you think it's important? Well, first of all, before I ask the question, that experience that you had, that you shared, have you written that down somewhere?
Ooh, you know what? I don't even know if I have. I'm not sure.
That shall be my challenge to you then. Because
I
think
will.
that is so important.
Yes.
Like, so important. Because what will happen is, I mean, you obviously have it in your mind, but go back and try to be as detailed as you can. I mean, I'm not a good writer, so I just talk it into my phone because I hate writing stuff. I do think there's value in seeing your handwriting. I have a spiritual journal and all that sort of thing. But I just think it's so important because, I don't know if you've told it to your children or not, but if you haven't, maybe someday they find it and they read it and it helps them. Like, we know, remember, right? And we think we're going to remember, but we don't.
No.
And for you now, having just shared that experience, I think it will be pretty powerful for you to write it down in as much detail as you can, the feelings, everything. So, 10, 15 years from now, you can go back and read it and those same feelings come back.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like, so that's my challenge to you.
Yeah, I will take that challenge.
Work on that, on writing it down.
Yeah, I will do.
Final question then. Why do you think it's important to recognize the hand of God in your life?
Because it's really hard to do it without him. Like I said, I feel like I've really, really come to understand in the last few years how good it is to feel peaceful about decisions. I think that I've always struggled with, like, what does happiness feel like? I feel like happiness is like the flower that grows on the root that joy is. And joy comes when we're peaceful. And I feel like if you can't navigate through your life feeling peaceful and having like that deep joy that comes from all of our experiences, from having families, having friendships, having learning, growing, doing things, I feel like you're not going to accomplish any of that without him. Like, he's part of that process. He's part of helping you recognize that. And the stronger the roots are on those things, on joy and peace, the better everything else is, right? Like, when the flower grows, when the happiness comes up, it's strong.
Bigger, brighter bloom.
The bloom is strong, the smell is sweet. Like, and I'm not even a flowery person, but that is something that just sticks in my mind about why that has to be there and why we want to cultivate it, right? Like, why we want to.
Gives you that confidence that, okay,
yes.
I know that this is the right decision, the right path.
Peace in your decisions, feeling peaceful. And I think as people get busier and they get more distracted and they get less quiet in their world, that will be
the chaos ensues, right?
Yeah. And so that real deep, that peace and the joy that comes from feeling peaceful will be elusive if you're not definitely working on something that's going to bring that about in your life, in your world. Yeah. And I think you could probably feel peaceful without God, but I think why would you do it on your own?
If you don't have to.
Right?
Especially if you know, right?
Yes.
If you don't know, well, that's way harder, right?
Yeah.
But, thank you
You're welcome.
much for sharing today.
I hope that was helpful.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you have an experience where you have seen the hand of God or your higher power in your life, I want to hear about it. Please send an email to Sheila@beyondcoincidence.com. Have a great day.